Hey guys, Rich from RichMid Gaming. Hope everyone is doing fantastically well. Today we are carrying on with our tier lists. We've had a bit of a break from them because other videos popped up, other things popped up, but we're back on them now. Over the next week or so, we're going to be covering everything from 3 threats, which we're going to do today, all the way up to the 6, 7+ threat characters. Before we jump in, remember we've got 3 competitions running for the month of August, so you can find all the details of them down in the description below. And yeah, let's jump over to the tier maker. So there's 40 in total to get through, so we're going to go quite quick. That's 38 that have already been released, plus 2 characters that have been announced. We've seen the card, so I'm basing it on their card and the little bit of gameplay that I've had. So first up then, we've got Ant-Man. Doesn't see too much play outside of affiliation. Starting to see a bit more in the Avengers now with Sam Wilson, but Ant-Man for me is going straight in at C tier. Baron Zemo next, everybody's favourite 3 threat character. He is just an absolute stalwart. He's seen a lot of play. He's played so much outside of affiliation. He's going straight in at S tier. Beast up next. Sees some play outside of affiliation, but predominantly in the X-Men and Defenders, but he's going in at B tier. Black Cat next, very strong, solid 3 threat character. She has stealth, so you've got to be within range 3 to attack her. Her grappling hook gives her some additional movement. She goes in at A tier. Black Widow, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. next, and whilst she did appear on our hardest hitting characters, very situational, and the chances are that you're not going to get it, she does have the unique Interrogate superpower, which allows you to claim some additional victory points, but overall she's not a particularly strong 3 threat, so coming in at C tier. Well, the first one of our D tiers, and what can we say about Bullseye that hasn't been said already? Not many situations where you're going to be taking him. He did make an appearance, I think, in one of the semi-final games in Season 5 of TTS, but for the most part, he's in the D tier. One of our newer leaders next, Captain America, Sam Wilson, and while Sam Spam is a very strong list at the moment, individually as Captain America, he's not a particularly strong character, so he's going in at B tier. Crossbones next, and this is an example of a character who may have not had much love in the past, but a new affiliation arises, a new leader for an affiliation arises, and all of a sudden you're seeing a lot more play with him. He's really solid in the Sin list now. He's got a really nice home in Criminal Syndicate. Crossbones is going in at B tier. Crystal up next, played quite a bit within the Inhumans, but really found her home in the A-Force as the person who's going to be dropping off She-Hulk. Elemental Onslaught allows her to make 3 attacks per game. Solid choice, solid damage, B tier. Deadpool Wade Wilson next, and he's going to dish out some really nice damage. He also has some quite unique tactics cards that he can bring to the game with as well. He has the ability to take power from your enemy, which is a unique ability. Good, strong, solid choice, B tier. Dr. Octopus now, and another example of a core box character that hasn't necessarily held his own throughout this time. He was a very underplayed character in the early days of the game, but as newer factions and new affiliations have come out, he's a real stalwart within that Spider-Foes B tier. Domino up next, and as well as being played in the X-Force and X-Men affiliation quite a bit, she brings a lot to the game. The probability manipulation means that you're going to always pretty much eke out that damage. She can hand out stuns, she can hand out incinerate. Overall, really strong character, S tier. Drax the Destroyer next, and we do see a bit of a trend in some of these lists where the Guardians are not scoring particularly well. Drax does have 6 health, which is one thing that's going for him, but his attacks are a little bit lackluster, doesn't really bring anything too much to the game, D tier. Gwen Stacy, aka Ghost Spider next, and for my money, one of the strongest 3 tiers in the game at the moment, straight in at S. Webline is absolutely fantastic. Activate her last and move characters from points. Lifesaver is a really good way of being able to mitigate enemy damage by just moving your allied character out of the way. And actually she can dish out some really nice damage, and then things like impact webbing have a push on there as well. Groot next, another character who's had ups and downs within Marvel Crisis Protocol, started out very strong, was played a lot within Guardians, wasn't played too much out of affiliation, But he has two things now that are really, really nice. First of all, his root. He can dish out root conditions, which is becoming one of the most powerful special conditions. He's also one of the few characters who has no limit on his throw. He can pick up any size character. So with the likes of Dormammu and potentially other large characters coming, Groot, I think, is going to see more play moving forward. But for right now, we're putting him in at B tier. Groot next, and another character that's had some ups and downs in Marvel Crisis Protocol. Right now, he's in a really good spot. He can dish out the root condition, which is very nice. He's also one of the very few characters that has no limit to his throw on his I Am Groot attack, meaning that he can pick up any size characters and throw them. He also has one of the few unrestricted healing cards in the game, which makes him quite strong both in and outside of affiliation. Groot is going in at B tier. Hawkeye next, and whilst Hawkeye only has one attack, Arrow Shot, he is able to dish out those conditions. He's also able to choose whether he wants that attack to be an energy or a physical attack, so you can pick your opponent's weakest defences. But the key thing here is that range 5 and the fact that he can pay 1 power to ignore cover and ignore line of sight. Hawkeye is seen played both in affiliation and out of affiliation quite a lot, so he's going straight in at A tier. Iron Fist, aka Danny Rand, up next then. So 5 stamina, which is okay, but it's really his attacks, his immortal weapon giving him an extra power, and the Master Martial Artist, meaning that he gains blanks not only at range 2, but actually within range 3, which is unique, puts him straight in at A tier. And we spoke a lot about core box characters who have stood the test of time or had a resurgence. One that is yet to do either of those things is Iron Man. Lackluster in pretty much everything he has, straight in at D tier. One of the newer characters now, Kraven the Hunter. I'm not going to pronounce his alter ego. Very, very strong 3-threat character. His attacks are okay, but it's really his expert tracker and counter the beast that add some really nice support mechanisms to his game. Absolute stalwart of the spider foes, but also played out of affiliation as well, straight in at B tier. Kraven's partner in crime, or at least in the box that he comes in next then, which is Lizard, and this is a character that, upon reading his character card, I thought it was going to be very, very strong. After playing both with and against him on a number of games, he's a little bit lackluster. He lacks that last little bit of damage that he needs, or that last little bit of manoeuvrability. He goes in at C tier. Everyone's favourite, bestest boy next, Lockjaw, aka Lockjaw, and whilst I would love to put him at S tier, his lack of attacks I think does restrict him somewhat, but his drop it, being able to throw terrain medium up to size 3, Interdimensional Bloodhound is absolutely fantastic. It's going to give an extra die for everyone in your team attacking a character. His teleportability is very, very strong. So those short movers, he can really move up the battlefield, and it's range 3 as well, which is very powerful. He obviously rolls attack and defense dice because of his inhuman abilities, and who's a good boy means that he's always going to have plenty of power. He goes straight in at A tier. Luke Cage next, and a really good solid brawler character. You can put him on a point. He's got the chance of a stagger from his Power Man Punch, which is quite nice. His throw on Sweet Criminals is really good as well because it's against size 3 characters. He does share some tactics cards with Danny Rand. Heroes for Hire is a fantastic reactive card. Not quite as good as his box counterpart, so he's going in at B tier. Another one of the newer releases, and I still think in some places unreleased characters then, is Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio. I absolutely love this character. I love his mechanics. Now, with those 1 defense for energy and physical, you may think that he's a real ease to take off the board game, but with tricks and traps, with Master of Illusions, with stealth, he's got some really nice mechanics up his sleeve. Can sit back on a point, force your enemy to spend power to be able to attack him in the first place. Very, very strong character, goes in at A tier. Mystique next, and another one of my favourite characters. Don't play her too much because for me Magneto takes the lead as the Brotherhood affiliation leader, but she's got some really nice situational things in her bag. Freedom Force is a fantastic affiliation leadership ability. Expert Sabotage is very nice, but for me it's the Shapeshifter ability that really sets her apart, meaning that your opponent cannot use any reactive tactics or superpowers whilst it's her activation. It means that things such as Okoye's bodyguards, Venom's so many snacks just cannot be used against her. She also has stealth and is also one of the only characters in the game that can hand out condition tokens before damage is actually dealt. She goes in at A tier. Proxima Midnight next, and whilst we see her played a lot in the game, unfortunately when she isn't paired with her husband, she loses a lot of her appeal. 3 attacks to choose from, but really outside of affiliation and outside of our husband, you're not going to see her played a lot. She goes in at C tier. Frank Castle, aka the Punisher next, another character that upon release didn't really get a lot of play, but he's starting to be played more now, especially in the Sam spam lists or even in the Sin spam lists as well, and that's mainly because of his The Fallen, where any of your allied characters, if they are dazed or KO'd, he gets to gain a punishment token. He can then spend those punishment tokens to add additional dice to his attacks. Still not particularly great. He does have a range 5 aim shot, but what lets him down is that his builder is a range 3. If that was range 5 as well, he would be really good at sitting on a back point. But yeah, does see a bit more play of late, but he's going in at C tier. Quicksilver next, and another good, strong, solid character. Very, very fast, can move around the board, has tactics cards that allow him to take objective tokens off his enemy. Supersonic reflexes and Can't Catch Me give him some additional survivability. He goes in at B tier. One of the old guard next in Shuri. She's been around for a while. Panther Gauntlets is an amazing attack. However, with the recent changes to Wakanda and how rerolls work, or not changes but clarification of rules, she's seeing less play of late. I do, however, still think she's a very, very solid character, but I'm actually dropping her down from S tier to A tier. Sin next, not too strong on her healthy side with only 4 stamina, but on her flipped she does get 6. Has the unique ability that if she takes damage and isn't dazed or KO'd even, she gains 1 extra power. Red Mayhem is a fantastic leadership ability when it works, and that's the problem here, is that it isn't guaranteed. If it goes your way and the dice are in your favour, then you're going to have some fantastic games with her. But if not, she's a real struggle. She goes in at B tier. Spider-Man Miles Morales next, and he's got some really nice abilities in his bag of tricks. So let's have a quick look then. Webline Kick has got a throw at the end of it for anything that's size 3 or less. Venom Blast allows him to force the enemy to drop whatever token it is that they are holding. Web Swing gives him some extra maneuverability, but also adds some extra dice to his Webline Kick as well. And then he's got the Web Warriors affiliation leadership ability, Great Responsibility, that allow all allied characters to reroll 1 defense dice. Additionally, if they are holding or contesting an objective token, they may modify and reroll their failures. Add in there his Spider Sense, allowing him to reroll 2 defense, or more importantly 2 dodge dice, and the fact that he's got stealth. Overall, very strong character. For me, doesn't do enough to get into that S tier, but goes straight into A tier. Star-Lord next, and the character that I really started out playing this game with. I used to love running my Guardians list with Killmonger, with Drop-Off. Absolutely loved it, but his days of being a highly played character are pretty much over at the moment. His attacks are fairly solid. Elemental Gun at range 4 is quite nice, and Full Auto at range 4, which can dish out multiple conditions, is very good, but winging it is just not fantastic. Plucky Attitude is quite nice if he rolls no hits or no blocks, but the chances of rolling none of either is very low. But it does mean that if you have a terrible roll, you can re-roll everything. He also has Fly and is a gem bearer. We'll get into more of that in the next 4 threat video, but he doesn't do enough to warrant a place any higher than C tier. Storm next, and a character that when we first saw this release thought was going to be a phenomenal piece on the board, and unfortunately she just doesn't stack up in games too great. She has the best of the leadership abilities of the X-Men at the moment, but that isn't saying a huge amount, and her 3 attacks are a little bit lackluster, so she doesn't really do enough to get herself anywhere higher than B tier. Taskmaster, aka Anthony Masters next, and another character that's starting to see more play outside of affiliation, although technically with his rogue agent ability he's never really outside of affiliation too much. Martial artist, intuitive pattern recognition and photographic reflexes mean that he is very, very difficult to take off a point. He's a fantastic character to give a token to. He's going to be able to sit there, keep that token, soak that damage and then retaliate. Straight in at B tier. Valkyrie next, and she's been around since almost the beginning of the game. What can I say about Valkyrie that hasn't already been said? If you want the best damage possible from a 3-threat character with charge, with Asgardian might, Warrior of Legend, extra power turn 1, so for some great turn 1 shenanigans, she really does bring everything into the game. Straight in at S tier. Viper next, and I have to be honest, this is one of the characters that I've played very, very few games with, but the games I have played and I have watched, she just doesn't bring too much to the game. Yes, she can dish out the poison, stun and slow conditions, but there's just no situation where I would be taking her over some of the other 3-threat characters, both in and outside of affiliation. She's not quite as bad as D tier, but she's going in at C tier. War Machine next, and I think he's really found a home straight away in the Avengers, running alongside Sam Wilson. That Sam spam list he works really, really nicely in. You're not going to see him played too much out of affiliation. Maybe if we get a new Iron Man affiliation, he will be part of that and we'll see even more play for him. But there's some really nice combination with cards such as Doom Prophecy and All You've Got that means he can dish out some real damage quite early on in the game. He goes in at C tier. Wasp, another character that has suffered of late. There are other people out there that do what she does better. She really doesn't have a home even in the Air Force at the moment. Crystal really takes that spot for the flight that's needed for special delivery. So she goes in at D tier. And the last of our release characters then is the Winter Soldier. And again, another character who's never really had a home in this game whatsoever. I think it's going to take a new affiliation for him to be part of, for him to really take off. Maybe if we have the Russian version of the Avengers, I can't remember off the top of my head what their names are, he could be part of that and find a home. But yeah, unfortunately for Bucket, straight in at D tier as well. Okay then, so on to the 2 unreleased characters now. So starting with Baron Mordo. I think this guy is going to be an absolute powerhouse. I think we're going to see him played as much as Baron Zemo outside of affiliation. He just brings so much. Soulbarb, meaning that enemy characters within 3 that have 1 or more of the following conditions, Hex, Incinerate, Poison or Slow, he's going to be able to then set off almost a bomb on them, and every other character or every other enemy character within range 2 is going to gain those conditions. So you think about things like gamma shelters where everyone's clumped up, it's going to be absolutely deadly on there. Ferocity of Sitarak means that he can buff his enemies in the same way that Thanos can. His Vaulting Boot of Valtor is that after he's pushed, he always gets to make a short advance, which is so powerful for getting back on point. And he's got 3 mystic attacks, 2 of them builders, and then the Rains of Ragador, 4 cost, 7 strength, Burning Rain, so after it's resolved, guaranteed Incinerate and Poison. Super powerful. I'm going to make a call here, guys, and say that he is going straight in at S tier. I don't normally do that with unreleased characters. I normally play on the side of caution, but I just think he's got so much on his card. Yes, he's only got 2 physical defense, but there are ways to be able to help him out with that. I think he's really strong. I think we're going to see him played a lot in this game. So on to the last one then, Mark Spector, aka Moon Knight. Very different character to Baron Mordo that we've just covered. He again has 2 builders, his bow staff and his throwing crescents, which I really like. His Avatar of Khonshu is a mystic attack. It does have a push and it allows him to place himself within 1. So super powerful, especially as there is a push on there as well, so you can push your character or push your enemy and then put yourself within one of them. Chosen of Khonshu, he's always going to be able to add 2 dice to his defense against mystic attacks, which is super powerful. We're seeing so many mystics out there at the moment. And the one piece about him that's going to be a little bit RNG is his multiple personalities. But unless you're rolling a failure, you're always going to get at least some benefit to your character in the game. He's most definitely not going in at S tier, but I think he's going to go straight in as a solid B tier. I think we're going to see a lot of play with him in the Midnight Suns. I hope he's going to be part of the Defenders as well, and we could potentially see some play outside of affiliation as well. And there we go, guys. That is my 3-threat tier list for all 40 3-threat characters that are in the game right now. I am sure there's going to be a lot of discussion down in the comment section, because I've probably put your favourite character much lower down than what you wanted. You probably don't agree with all of my S choices. But remember, as with all of these videos, each one of these characters is more than viable. The gap between S and D is not cataclysmic. It's not so huge that it means Bullseye is just unplayable. As I mentioned, somebody got to the semi-finals of the TTS League with Bullseye in their roster. So any character in Marvel Crisis Protocol is viable. Remember, most people are just playing this for fun, so play the characters that you like. This is just my take on where each of the characters are right now in the game. And as we've also seen with characters such as Crossbones, that can flip overnight with the release of a brand new character as well. But let me know down in the comment section what you think. Please like the video if you like it. Please subscribe if you haven't done already. Remember, we've got the 3 giveaways running for the month of August. You can find details of those down in the description below. And as always, it leaves me with just enough time to say stay well, keep safe, and until next time, bye for now.